society, make them feel somewhat normal again. So we do have questions to answer. This is a time for you guys to think about what you would want to ask these guys. This is your time, this is your moment. We have 2 people up here. We're going to have these questions, and you get to ask them anything you want, as long as it has to do with the human trafficking portion of things. We were going to do a little bit more on this, but we're running a little on time, so I'm going to go ahead and start with Annie down here. She's got a question for us.
This is Sarah, and she just wants to know, where can she send a check?
Oh, wait.
Hold on a second. Sarah wants to know where she's sending the check. I'm getting on the stage for this. I'll be right back. We're going to stop everything we're doing. We're going to work right over here. So she's going to be taken care of on that. So that was a great question. That's how we do this, right, guys? That's the difference maker right there. Okay. All right. So we got another question coming up. Guys, remember, listen. Not all of us are sponsored by Walmart or Pfizer or J&J. I mean, I do a radio show with Josh Reed in the middle of the day. We're the J&J that won't kill you. So understand that, you can laugh, it's okay. But these guys are doing this because it's in their heart, and it's what we do because we want to be a part of this. Annie, you got another question? Closer to the mic.
Is it on?
Yep.
Okay, there we go. Michelle would like to know, how much time do perpetrators usually get, and what can be done so they don't do it again?
Okay, so we're wanting to find out really what do they get for these sentences? Is this lifetime, and is this a castration, chemical castration, bullet to the head? What happens, and how long does this duration? Is it by case by case?
It's case by case, to be honest with you, but I asked the judge when I was testifying, I said, what kind of time are these guys looking at? When I say guys, I mean the women and men. And he said they're looking at 20 years. And I was ecstatic, because 20 years in a Honduran prison,
No way.
is like 1,000 years in a U.S. prison. They'll be lucky if they come out of there alive.
And a lot of them won't get through processing because once they found out what the crime is, isn't there a justice system within?
I've heard of it.
Right. So there's another part of that. Okay, Annie, next question. So remember that, guys, there's a lot of things that have to do with, what they're willing to do or what they're willing to be a part of and help. There's all these different angles, and so, we want the worst sentence for these guys, but you have to remember, if you're in a Honduran prison, I couldn't imagine what the water's like.
Okay, this is Kevin, and his question is, how do you get the trust of the local law enforcement?
How do you build those relationships with those PD that may be on the take or don't really care, or they do care too much?
Well, most of the countries we work in, we have that problem. The law enforcement, you don't know how lucky you are to live in the United States, where our justice system, it's not perfect, but it's way better than, especially on the local level, it's way better than where I work. These police where I work have no training, no budget. It's not a lie, they do not have gas money to get out to the villages. That's true. So when you're up against that, and then a cartel member comes up to you, and what he has a booklet with your wife's picture, your kids' pictures leaving school, your grandparents, they know where your house is. They come up to you and go, hey, we would like you to work with us. What do you think about that? The guy has no choice, because they will kill his family if he says no. So that's the corruption we're dealing with. So we rely on, in a lot of these countries, our Homeland Security has vetted units that they've worked with, that they've vetted. So then we'll embed with them. And in other places, we just have to do our homework. Try to find, there's always good people in this world. And in these countries, not all the police are bad. We try to find the ones that are good, and work with them. Because they're, and it's hard sometimes to not get jaded, but there are good people all over.
Well, and that's, yeah, think about that, guys. That's, you know, that's the guy's family, right? Well, hey, do your job, but there's a lot of risk there. We got a question over here?
Yeah, this is Colleen. She'd like to know what's being done or can be done to reduce the demand for this sort of thing, the other side of the equation.
How do we limit the demand? How do we slow that whole cycle up? Okay?
Yeah, so that's done with education and awareness. That's why O.U.R, when it first really came out, that was our focus, was really just promoting it. We made a whole bunch of documentaries. The Sound of Freedom is the Hollywood version of a documentary called Operation Triple Take. You guys should go check it out if you haven't seen it, it's amazing. But yeah, that's really how, from an organization perspective, that's how we combat this, is A, helping survivors move past that. And honestly, I want to kind of chip it over to the survivors that are sitting next to me, because they would be in a position to speak better as far as what they think is effective. So I'm going to just hand this off.
Thanks. One thing that I would add is I think we need to understand that when you see porn, you are literally fueling the demand for sex trafficking. I read a statistic, I don't know if it's correct, but 90% of the women on a porn video don't want to be there. They maybe look like they do, they don't want to be there, guys. I'm telling you. And so you are paying a trafficker to do this to this woman. And so the more that we talk about this stuff, I know it's ugly and it's maybe not what you know everybody wants to hear, but that's the demand, and that's what we got to start taking care of. That's my thought.
There's been research and interviews done with child rapists in prison, and they will tell you that the only thing that would have stopped them from committing the first crime was the death penalty.
So think about that. That's how far they're willing to go. And so it really is, you got to be careful about this slippery slope. Annie, you got another question here?
This is Carol, and she would like to know if there are the aftercare houses or properties and around here, near here, and if they take volunteers, are they secretive? What's going on around here in Michigan?
So the aftercare facilities, they're wanting to know if they can get involved, not just to throw cash at it, but they want to actually make that difference with boots on the ground.
So from O.U.R's perspective, absolutely. We fund, I have a couple different facilities, one in Indiana, I have one in Michigan. I'm not going to go into the details of those locations and all that stuff. However, if you are interested in volunteering in any way, shape, or form with our aftercare program, you should go to our website, again, ourrescue.org, and there's a group, it's called our Conductors Club, and there are volunteers. There actually four or five amazing members have been out here manning our booth, and they're the Michigan chapter. And so if you want to get involved and do aftercare, that is where I would point you from an O.U.R. perspective. As far as other stuff that's going on in Michigan, I'm not aware. Are you ladies aware of anything? Ty? No. So, but that's I know we do support a couple different programs. One specifically for like runaway, like street children specifically that we fund in Michigan. So that's what I'm aware of.
I work with Hope Ranch in Kansas, which does do the aftercare. They have horses in equine, and I work with them. I've had the director on my show a few times, and I've actually been to their events. In fact, I'm going to be one here in a couple months with Tim Tebow that they're doing fundraising. And it's very important to understand, guys, these people really need time, and they need that arm around them to make sure they have that. So when we think about, well, why you've been there for 2 years, well, maybe they were dealing with it for 20 years, and it's going to take a little time to unwind on that, right?
And real quick before we go to the next question, that's actually something I'm really proud of about O.U.R's aftercare program, is nobody ever ages out.
Right.
Like once you're part of the aftercare program and our aftercare, you're always part of us, because the rescue is committed for life. The healing doesn't stop because you're not in the situation or you have a job. You know, we're always here for you. So, you know.
There are 3 human beings on this stage that understands what it's like to recover from that situation. So it is possible. It does take time, but that memory is always there. You remember when you went to Six Flags or you went to Joyland or whatever it was, just think about something that was part of your daily life. It does take time to unwind that. Those memories are there. Andy, next question? Oh, do we have one? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Sandra, and she'd like to understand to just look at the United States and the children who are victims. Are they mostly U.S. citizens, people who've been smuggled in, trafficked in? How does it break down?
So currently, according to the U.S. State Department, 75% of all people that are trafficked in the United States are U.S. citizens.
Now, you gotta remember, I quoted a statistic yesterday that we have 500,000 kids that go missing in child protective services, family services, every year, uninvestigated, and they're recorded as lost. And there's another 500,000 kids that go missing in the general population of America that are never investigated or lost as well, that are never recovered. So there's 1 million kids that go missing in America that we're not even talking about, that just poof out of existence. So there's a lot of things that maybe we're tracking some things, but maybe we're not picking it all up, but we have to combine all those numbers and understand this is a real problem for America. Andy, next.
This is for the survivors, and it's from the front
Hold on
row
one
here.
second. One second.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, Andy, they wanted to say something.
Well, I just want to say that also, trafficking can look a lot of different ways, and you're not always taken. And so I just want to point that out, that there's a lot of kids being trafficked within our school system and our churches and our teams. And so we got to see that as well. They still get to go home. I still got to go home. But that doesn't change the fact that I was sold.
And I'm sure these guys would say the same things. Depending on agencies, you're going to see numbers vary. However, basically 8 million children around the world go missing every year and unaccounted for, and the U.S. accounts for at least 10% of that. But oftentimes you'll see state numbers that are 80,000, 30,000. Well, if you start multiplying that times 50 states, that's more than 800,000 kids. But she's right. So we see it across all different lines. I was a domestic trafficking victim. She's a domestic trafficking victim, meaning trafficked from our homes, right? But then there are also these kids who go missing.
Andy?
Okay, from the front row here, this is for the survivors. And how long did it take you to become at peace with your healing process? How long did that take, and what did that look like?
I think it's, okay, so it depends on the day. It's a daily battle, but I am healthier than I've ever been within the last year. And I have found purpose for my pain, and I feel like God is using this to bring Him glory, and I'm so thankful for that. And I just am excited about my future because of that, but not to say there's not still really hard days.
I'm the old girl up here. So I started this process a long time ago, and I've said publicly I've done at least 900, probably close to 1,000 hours of counseling, EMDR therapy, trauma therapy, inner healing, deliverance, intensives. I've been doing this for a really long time. That's cumulative, about 20 years, and a lot of dollars. And sometimes it wasn't stuff I had easy access to. I've had entire months and years where, for the most part, I don't think about my trafficking until I started talking again about it. And then a lot of people want me to think about it every day and send me a text about kids in bags in the Philippines, and I have to remind them that I don't want to wake up like that. I'm just a regular person and have a regular life, but it was worth the investment. It was a long haul, and when I started, the term human trafficking didn't really exist. And when I started, I walked into a therapist's office, a therapist's office years after doing this, and I knew how to vet therapists. And I said to him, "Do you believe this happens in the US?" And he said, "No, but I can help you figure out why you believe it, and we'll get that fixed." So I've been doing this for decades, and so what's available now is better. There's a lot more resources, a lot more aftercare. There were not organizations like what these guys are doing when I started. So my journey may have essentially been longer because of that. Maybe it's shorter now, but it's a pretty long-term investment, right?
I will say one of the worst comments I've heard was from a police officer who told me, "You've watched too many movies. This doesn't happen in America."
All day long we take these kind of comments. And I could go on about the church, but I'll shut my mouth now.
Well, if you want to think about how you rip the scab off and bring up all those emotions, that's the kind of comment you make. And having lived that, you understand that that's why you don't talk about it. So that's why I don't talk about it. That's why they don't want to talk about it. Because when you talk about it, it is that old feeling of walking through it again. Next question.
Yeah, this is Terry, and what she'd like to understand is, aside from direct financial support, what can a regular person do to directly help?
So what can we do? What can we do other than physical or financial? Is there anything else that, or just opening our mouth and saying at office that we can?
Yeah, so if you want to go first,
You start and I'll go next.
okay.
Yeah, you could just educate yourself on what's going on in your community. I guarantee there's aftercare facilities in your community if you want to go volunteer. If you don't want to volunteer, prayer. Like, we actually have a text prayer line for when our operators are going to do operations overseas. If you want to be a part of that text prayer line, please, everyone, I would encourage everyone to be a part of it. Power of prayer has been proven scientifically.
Yep.
So, yeah, if you can't give financially, if you can't give your time, give your prayers.
I think it included giving up time.
Oh,
I can give time?
yeah, if you're looking to give time, then like I said, the website has a whole bunch of different organizations that you can get tied
Microphone. I can hear you.
Most people can. They tell me to lower the volume, not raise it. Anyway, you can go to the website, and there's a whole bunch of different resources for you to use as far as like finding out local places to. But honestly, like most of your local churches, your food pantry, like you go volunteer in any of these type of places, you're going to run into trafficking victims. Anywhere that there are people that are marginalized, or there's poor, or there's gaps within the system, that's where predators thrive. And so you're going to find victims there, and you're going to be able to help them.
I would also say use your social media to get the word out and to raise awareness that way. Because, predators use social media. We can use it too.
I have just a little bit different thing I've been recommending lately, and I've done this a few times, but I think that everybody needs to go take a citizen police academy from your local law enforcement, and here's why. It doesn't seem like it's directly tied to the human trafficking issue, but the first time I took one, the detective said, the first line he said was, "We have gone from a front porch society to a back deck society." And what he meant was, we are no longer the eyes and ears of our communities. And so, General Flynn often says local action, national impact. So if you guys can get to a citizen police academy and find out how law enforcement works, build relationships with them, they're going to tell you how to be the eyes and ears of your community, how to report, who to talk to. They're going to go through all these issues, and you're going to walk out of there feeling empowered to do community in your area differently. And that's a start. It's a start, and everybody can do that. And it feels really empowering, and it's kind of fun, actually.
Go ahead, Tom. You want to add? Okay. All right, Andy, next question.
This is Barb, and she has horses and would like to help and get connected to aftercare programs.
Wow, that'd be amazing.
Yes.
Horses are expensive, and if you're volunteering, wow, that's amazing.
We'll talk.
Yeah, so he's got a job for you already. Don't worry about that. Them horses are busy already. So horses, it's amazing what they'll do for people. They're amazing, amazing creatures, and that's fantastic that you're a part of that. Thank you. Next, we got one over here.
Yeah, this is Andrea. She's curious about the government's role in this and what can be done, whether it be active indifference or passive involvement.
So what is the government really doing? Are they in the way? Are they out of the way? Are they helping increase awareness and recovery?
No, on one of the most recent ops that I just got back from, we actually worked with our federal government. They had a team down there, and we worked side by side with them, and it went extremely well. I'm sure they were a little hesitant on bringing us in because we are a nonprofit. We are not law enforcement. Most of us came from law enforcement, but we're no longer. And by the end of it, they were singing our praises, and they were sending it up the chain, their chain of command, going, "Hey, work with these guys. They're good." So it can't be done overnight, but we're making inroads into places that, if you would have told me 5 years ago that a federal law enforcement agency would work with a non-law enforcement agency, I would have said you were crazy. But I just got done working with it. So I think we're moving in the right direction. Does it go as fast as everybody wants? No. But what does, right?
Well, Americans like their 3-minute cheeseburgers, right? But it doesn't always happen that way. Got more coming?
And I think it's really important to contextualize what local police are dealing with, too, because like you have to understand they have a limited amount of resources to accomplish a whole bunch. And their first priority, like any sane person, is going to be taking care of murder, right? And then after that, you've got your violent assault, rape, that type of thing, right? And then after that, you've got narco, vice, and then you've got, your misdemeanors, all that other stuff, and then traffic. And then after all of that, there might be some human trafficking. So it's not a lack of desire from the agencies to go and execute these missions. It's a lack of funding and urgency from the public. So.
Annie, next question?
Shannon,
Sorry, hold on time.
I'd like to add something to that, because I was a detective. What you're gonna see in your communities, the future is not looking good, okay? What you're seeing is there's a manpower shortage in the police, right? You've all seen it.
Yeah.
So, a police department's number one objective is to handle 911 calls, right? So when they lose bodies due to retirement, people quit and whatever, that lowers the amount of numbers in patrol who answers the 911 calls. So what they end up having to do is take from detectives and backfill into patrol. But do they take the detectives out of homicide? No. Out of assault? No. They take them out of the proactive units such as narcotics, vice, human trafficking, if they have it. Because usually if they have a vice unit, they're doing human trafficking type of cases, prostitution, that type of thing. So now you have agencies that aren't focused on that. Then another thing you're gonna have a problem with is guys like me that have spent 20 some years undercover. I'm no longer a police, but I was trained by guys that had experience. You're gonna have no one with experience because there's been a gap now of no one doing this type of work. And when you tell an old guy like me you're going back to patrol, what happens? They quit or they retire or quit. So now there's no one to teach these younger officers when their manpower comes up how to do these type of investigations. So it's not looking good for U.S. law enforcement at the local level.
Okay, Annie, do you have a question?
yes, Shannon would like to know what, as grandparents and parents, to look for in the kids.
What are the signs?
I would like to, I will leave the science up to someone else, but I meant to give this in my speech because I always like to leave something with people, and I felt time pressure, so I didn't, but I'm going to give it to you now because it's very important. There's another case I had. Very wealthy family. Their daughter graduated from high school. It was between her senior year and going to college. She was heading off to college. She was pumping gas, and she was approached by this guy. He started sweet talking her. Next thing you know, 3 days later, she's turning tricks on him. And I got on the case, rescued her, arrested the bad guy. I'm sitting there talking to the bad guy, interviewing him. I'm asking him questions, and then he goes, "Oh, stop right there, Detective Holland." I said, "What?" He goes, "I have a question for you. Did you go to college?" "What do you mean, did I go to college?" "I'll play your game. Yeah, I went to college." He said, "How many years did you study?" I said, "I got my 4-year degree." And he goes, "During that time, did you spend a lot of time studying?" And I said, "Yeah." Grade point doesn't show it, but yeah, I did. And he goes, "Well, I want to tell you something. I spent the equivalent of a 4-year degree or even a master's degree studying one thing." I said, "What was that?" And he goes, "How to manipulate girls." So, that's what your girls are up against, is a person with a PhD in how to manipulate them. And he gave me this one bit of advice or tidbit that I want to share with you, because this is real world stuff that you can take home and talk about. If there's one thing you teach your girls, or even boys, is self-confidence. When they talk to someone, they look them in the eye. Because this pimp, who has a master's degree in how to manipulate girls, he said, I'll be at the mall, I'll approach a group of girls. If I start sweet talking them and they look me in the eye, I move on. I don't pay any attention to them. He goes, I'm looking for the girl that looks down at her feet and is shy and going, oh, thank you. He says, I know I got her. Somewhere I'm gonna be able to manipulate her. So the simple act of your kids, your friends' kids, whatever, the simple act of them looking into the eye of someone could save their life.
Very good. The question was about signs and
Yeah,
symbols.
and I would agree with what he says, and I would also say that them not looking people in the eye is a sign that something's not right, right? They're vulnerable in some way, which could lead a predator to get toward them. But it could also mean that if you're a public school teacher, you're in church, you're in the neighborhood, and you see a kid that chronically, looks down, looks away, doesn't look an adult in the eye, but that's a warning sign. The other big warning sign, in my opinion, is a change in behavior. And I feel like as a culture, we're so distracted in our parenting and our daily life that often that little warning sign that says something's off, we'll just let it slide past us. We're busy and we'll think, oh, I'm paying too much attention to that. Get so close to your kids that the slightest change in their behavior would cause you to have a conversation with them and make sure they know they can talk to you about anything.
I think the biggest thing that I would add to that is never tell a kid you're just seeking attention. I was cutting, I had suicidal thoughts, I was showing behaviors of somebody in pain. And when somebody says, no, you're just seeking attention, that messes with your head. And I think these coping skills that these kids develop to try to numb the pain, in some way it kind of is seeking attention because they need somebody to notice they are hurting. And so don't judge them for that. Don't judge somebody because they're doing drugs to numb the pain. They have a reason. And I think when we see the heart of the individual first, not just the negative coping skill, we're going to get a lot farther with that survivor.
So we should treat victims like victims instead of criminals? All right, I'm done.
Yeah, very good.
Drop the mic right
So
there.
one last question, guys, and this has been a great panel, so we've got to make sure, hear this last one out. We got one more question?
Yeah, this is Kim. She has a related but slightly different question. The question is, are there resources or training where concerned adults can understand the signs, practice better awareness, know what to look for to identify victims?
So we have classes or courses or things that people can take so they can be a part of this.
Yeah, so for the online bit, which is where we're seeing the largest growth as far as grooming goes, I would go to thorn.org website. They specialize specifically in that, the online grooming of children. We reference them basically, so if you want to go to our website, you can go there as well. But they do a really great job of giving you the tools to frame the conversation so it's impactful and that your child really hears you. So that would be one for educating yourself on the online, or educating yourself on how to educate your children for online defense. That would be my suggestion there for the online aspect.
One great resource that I have found is notinourchurch.org, and basically it helps teach your church how to handle pedophiles.
Very
It's
good.
very interesting.
We can drop the mic right there.
Yeah. Ty, anything to add? You can close it out. This is your spot.
Be parents.
Amen.
I mean, do your job. Be parents. You're not their friend.
Amen.
You're their parent. And if you allow your kid before high school, if you allow a child to have any electronic device when they go to bed, they have a 400% more likelihood to suffer depression, anxiety, any number of things. Because what that child does is that child puts out a tweet, puts out an Instagram, whatever they're doing nowadays, TikTok. They get up 4 to 6 times that night to check to see how many likes it has. And then, if it doesn't have as many likes as they think, it sets them up for that next day failure. Because everything is a like. Don't even, you're not going to be popular, but when they go to bed, don't have electronics in their room. They're not they need to do. Have them also, any computer in the room, cover up that camera. Because the bad guys can remote into it, turn on the camera, and exploit them from there.
Sticky notes.
Sticky note on the camera.
So, just a couple little things to leave you.
So there's a real quick point is fathers, I'm gonna give this as a challenge as fathers and mothers as well, but fathers, listen, the predators know when the child doesn't have a father in the home. And I know it still happens when there's father in the home, and I understand it, but understand we need to make sure fathers are back in our home, and we want this government back, we want our country back, we want this world back. We need to have a big G, God-centered family home with a father at the head of that, and make sure that these kids understand that there is an authority and they have someone they can go to if they need safety and comfort in their father. So be mindful of those things. And thank you guys so much that our two trappers and also the men who are working with us. Thank you guys so much. Remember, support O.U.R.